Princess Leonor's wealth, who pays and why it matters globally. The hidden royal ledger. A silver-edged document glints under restrained lighting, every line precise, every figure accounted for. This is the architecture of inheritance turned inside out, not the private treasures of a family, but the meticulous record of state responsibility. The name at its center is Princess Leonor, yet the ledger is not hers alone. It is a ledger of continuity, of obligations that extend beyond a single lifetime. National identity is woven into these rituals, visible in the disciplined cadence of ceremony, the measured movements of official life, the quiet assurance that the institution endures. The crown is funded by the state, not by inheritance. Every allocation is audited, every expenditure justified in the language of government, not privilege. There is a gravity here few witness, a slow, deliberate rhythm to the machinery of monarchy that parallels no private wealth. To observe it is to see a nation balancing history with modernity, prestige with accountability. From Madrid to Washington, from London to Ottawa, the ledger is a mirror. Governments across the world note the structure, not the individuals, evaluating stability in terms of transparency and resilience. In Australia, questions arise not of luxury but of legitimacy. Does the crown still embody continuity in an age of flux? In Germany, the calculus is similar, though framed in constitutional respect rather than sentiment. Most would assume wealth in the palace flows from gold-laden coffers passed through generations. They imagine inheritance, jewels, estates. That is not the case. The ledger conceals what is explicit in practice: operational funding, state grants, civil allowances, an institutional ecosystem sustained by law, not legacy. Continuity is not abstract here, it is embodied in visible presence. Every appearance, every duty, every recorded expense signals more than ceremony. It signals survival. There is a tension between perception and reality. Minute by minute, as Princess Leonor moves through the corridors of public responsibility, the ledger moves in parallel, unseen but omnipresent. The United States observes with quiet curiosity, interpreting each allocation as an index of Spanish governance. London notes the balance, a subtle calibration of respect for the monarchy without interference. This is the living thread of continuity, stretched taut between duty and accountability. The hidden royal ledger. Yet within these numbers, there is a silent mystery. Not all expenditures are public. Some line items, faintly coded, hint at initiatives, training programs, international travel, mechanisms that prepare a successor not for leisure, but for service. What is the cost of continuity? And what is the price of misalignment? It is not extravagance that is perilous, but opacity. By the midpoint, the ledger itself seems to breathe. One line suggests a strain, a potential friction between state oversight and institutional autonomy. A question emerges: how far can the crown remain insulated from politics while still commanding legitimacy? The ledger answers in part, through restraint and allocation, but it leaves the heart of the matter deliberately unspoken. At 14 minutes, the point of no return arrives with subtlety. Future obligations expand faster than historical precedent. The next generation inherits responsibility, not fortune. There is a tension, not yet a crisis, between fiscal stewardship and public expectation. The ledger records what must be done, but it cannot predict perception. In Canada, officials note these nuances carefully, aware that constitutional monarchy is a careful performance of balance. Across the Atlantic, in Australia, whispers circulate of potential reforms, of transparency initiatives that could reshape the ledger itself. In Germany, analysts consider parallels, the enduring question: how does a modern state fund the symbolic without sacrificing democratic accountability? Continuity is the prize, but the method is scrutinized globally, measured against standards no single nation sets alone. By 19 minutes, a subtle foreshadowing enters. Political winds shift imperceptibly. Civil debate, media scrutiny, parliamentary questioning, all may intersect with the ledger's quiet logic. Every allocation of funds, every state-sanctioned expense, now carries the weight of both historical fidelity and potential controversy. The hidden royal ledger. And yet, as the narration nears its close, the ledger remains incomplete. Figures line up precisely, yet the story stretches forward. Princess Leonor stands at the edge of public life, fully encumbered by duty, fully accountable to law, yet entirely unbound by the certainty of outcome. National identity, institutional survival, global credibility, each hinges on mechanisms invisible to casual eyes. The ledger closes for now, but the page turns. The hidden royal ledger. What it will reveal next is unwritten, and the consequences of its entries will echo far beyond palace walls. A quiet uncertainty persists, profound in its restraint, and in that silence the future waits. The ledger does not speak in spectacle. It speaks in precision, in deliberate allocations, in the quiet assertion that the crown's continuity is inseparable from the machinery of the state. Each line is a measure of trust, from treasuries to ministries, and each signature confirms that authority flows from law, not lineage. Princess Leonor inhabits this system with clarity. Her wealth is not an inheritance of indulgence but a tool of governance, a living ledger of responsibility. In London, officials watch and compare, noting how Spain balances ceremonial visibility with structural oversight. The UK sees in the ledger a mirror of its own monarchy, disciplined, accountable, constrained by precedent yet liberated by ritual. Across the Atlantic, American analysts evaluate the ledger as a measure of institutional resilience, a proxy for political stability in Europe. Continuity is not abstract here, it is a test of systemic endurance under global scrutiny. Yet for all its order, the ledger harbors unspoken intricacies. Some expenditures suggest strategic investments, cultural diplomacy, educational programs, specialized training abroad. These are lines without flourish, yet each carries influence far beyond domestic borders. In Ottawa, such entries are read not as luxury but as preparation, an assertion that a successor's capability is inseparable from state support. National identity, always, is woven into these decisions, silent but omnipresent. The hidden royal ledger. It is in these moments that questions emerge, subtle but persistent. How much autonomy should the Crown exercise in fiscal discretion? When state funding intersects with institutional priorities, where does oversight end and operational freedom begin? Germany observes with constitutional caution, aware that any misalignment between symbolism and accountability can ripple across public trust. The ledger is both shield and signal. It protects the institution, while simultaneously revealing its boundaries. Princess Leonor's position is singular. She is heir, but also participant in a network of governance that extends far beyond Spain. Every travel arrangement, every protocol expense, every ceremonial investment is logged, justified, and scrutinized. The ledger ensures that wealth is inseparable from duty, that continuity is inseparable from public trust. Minute by minute, it quietly affirms that survival of the institution is the ultimate prize. The ledger suggests movement without revealing motion. There is an unresolved tension here, between expectation and authority, between inherited responsibility and state-imposed accountability. Australia notes the delicate equilibrium, aware that public perception shapes legitimacy as much as any legal framework. Across the world, the ledger is studied, respected, occasionally questioned, always interpreted as an index of both prudence and power. The ledger waits, impartial and unyielding, while the successor inhabits its space, learning the cadence of service, the discipline of visibility, the weight of scrutiny. Every allocation reinforces continuity, every audit underscores survival, every line is a reminder that prestige is earned in transparency, not claimed through possession. The hidden royal ledger. Here, at the edge of institutional inevitability, the ledger speaks most clearly, the story is ongoing. Every sum recorded, every procedural check, every sanctioned expenditure is a note in a composition that stretches forward, indefinite in scope, uncompromising in consequence. Princess Leonor moves within it, not as a figure of opulence, but as a steward of continuity, her authority inseparable from the state that funds it and the world that observes it. The ledger is more than numbers. It is a map of responsibility, tracing flows of obligation from ministries to palaces, from treasuries to ceremonial offices. Each entry is deliberate, each allocation a silent negotiation between power and accountability. Princess Leonor's public presence is inseparable from this structure. The grandeur of ceremonies, the precision of appearances, the rigor of protocol, all funded not by inheritance but by the state's enduring commitment to institutional stability. In Washington, analysts note how these expenditures reflect systemic discipline. It is not about the individual, but the mechanism, how a monarchy adapts to modern governance while preserving legitimacy. Continuity is not abstract here, it is tangible, codified, visible in every audited document, every planned journey, every official responsibility. The United Kingdom reads it similarly, a test of resilience, an index of global credibility, a living exercise in balancing tradition with transparency. Yet even the most meticulous ledger leaves room for ambiguity. Some allocations hint at programs not publicly disclosed, specialized training, international advisory consultations, strategic initiatives in cultural diplomacy. Each is an investment in capacity, not in luxury. In Ottawa, officials interpret these with cautious respect, understanding that such funding preserves the capacity for leadership, not indulgence. National identity is woven into these decisions, subtle but deliberate, signaling continuity that cannot be performed through spectacle alone. The hidden royal ledger. By now, tension is quietly palpable. The ledger hints at strains, the inevitable friction between state oversight and institutional autonomy. Every allocation reflects a balance between discretion and accountability, and every unexplained line whispers of priorities that must remain shielded from public view. Germany observes carefully, noting how such mechanisms protect stability without compromising transparency. The ledger, silent yet precise, becomes a measure of the institution's endurance under scrutiny. Princess Leonor's position is not ceremonial alone. Each sum recorded, each procedural approval, each state-sanctioned expense reinforces a pattern of responsibility. Her wealth is inseparable from duty. She inherits not a fortune, but a framework, a structured environment in which prestige is defined by service, and authority by adherence to law. Minute by minute, she inhabits a world where continuity, legitimacy, and global perception converge. The ledger conceals and reveals simultaneously. Lines of expenditure suggest calculated foresight, investments in education, in leadership development, in representation abroad. Yet the unspoken weight of these decisions is what truly commands attention. Australia sees this subtlety, aware that legitimacy is maintained not by extravagance, but by the disciplined execution of duty. The world interprets these movements as signals. The state is steadfast, the crown is accountable, and continuity remains the prize above all else. The ledger is silent, but its impact is profound. It defines boundaries without announcing them, codifies authority without displaying it, and safeguards continuity through structures invisible to casual observation. Princess Leonor's every step, every engagement, every sanctioned expenditure is inscribed into this ongoing narrative, a living testament to the fusion of law, tradition, and institutional foresight. The hidden royal ledger. Here, the story bends toward the future. The ledger is not static, it evolves with responsibility. Every allocation, every audit, every procedural record is a signal to global observers. Spain sustains its institution, nurtures its successor, and respects the delicate balance between visibility and discretion. And yet, even in this order, uncertainty remains. The ledger ends each chapter not with resolution, but with the quiet implication that what comes next is uncharted, and the consequences will ripple far beyond palace walls. The ledger's authority is quiet but absolute. It governs movement, dictates access, and enforces boundaries. Princess Leonor is never outside it, she inhabits it fully, her daily life measured against the discipline of recorded responsibility. Each ceremonial appearance, each official engagement, each sanctioned journey abroad is both an act of service and a reinforcement of state accountability. The wealth she controls is not for indulgence, it is the instrument of continuity, a tangible expression of the institution's endurance. Across oceans, the ledger speaks in signals. In the United States, analysts trace patterns of funding and protocol, reading them as indicators of stability. In London, advisors compare allocations against precedent, interpreting restraint as a mark of legitimacy. In Canada and Australia, there is recognition that institutional credibility depends as much on transparency as on tradition. Germany, too, watches these measures, noting that legality and discretion are the twin pillars of sustainable monarchy. Continuity is not abstract here, it is codified, disciplined, and visible to those who know where to look. Yet the ledger conceals as much as it reveals. Certain expenditures remain coded, hinting at programs that prepare the heir for duties unseen: diplomatic education, specialized training, international alliances. These are investments in capacity, not luxury. They form a subtle network of influence, shaping the successor in ways the public rarely observes. Minute by minute, these allocations build competence, resilience, and readiness, ensuring that when duty demands, the crown is embodied in capability, not mere title. The hidden royal ledger. By this point, tension deepens. The ledger, precise though it is, reflects the strain of sustaining institutional authority under global scrutiny. Lines suggest pressure points, areas where state oversight intersects with operational autonomy. The crown is funded by the state, not by inheritance, yet every allocation carries expectation, every sanctioned expenditure carries weight. Australia and Canada perceive these nuances, noting that legitimacy depends on the careful calibration of autonomy and accountability. The ledger itself becomes both shield and mirror, protecting the institution while signaling its priorities to the world. Princess Leonor's wealth is inseparable from responsibility. She does not inherit fortune, she inherits framework. Every line item in the ledger enforces discipline, every audit reinforces authority, and every approved expenditure safeguards continuity. Minute by minute, she is tested, not in grandeur, but in stewardship. The institution's survival is the prize, personal preference is irrelevant. Continuity is not abstract here, it is visible, codified, disciplined, and global in implication. Even as the ledger orders her world, uncertainty persists. Some allocations hint at contingencies, at potential strains that may arise in the future. Political scrutiny, public expectation, global perception, each intersects with the ledger's logic, producing friction that remains invisible to most observers. Washington, London, Ottawa, Canberra, Berlin, each interprets the ledger as an index of institutional resilience, watching for signs that continuity may falter. The hidden royal ledger. And in that silence, the ledger reminds us that the story is unfinished. Every line accounted for, every procedure sanctioned, every obligation met, yet the next chapter is unwritten. Princess Leonor stands at the nexus of law, tradition, and duty, her wealth inseparable from the machinery that sustains it. The ledger closes for now, but it will open again, quietly, precisely, and with consequences that extend far beyond the palace walls. What happens next is not determined, only disciplined, observed, and deeply consequential. The ledger is both anchor and compass. It measures duty in ways no casual observer can see, tracing obligations from state treasury to ceremonial office, from legal mandate to visible presence. Princess Leonor moves through this architecture with deliberate grace. Her wealth is not an inheritance of indulgence, it is the currency of continuity, the means by which the institution maintains authority and credibility across generations. Each allocation signals responsibility, each approved expenditure affirms legitimacy, each procedural approval enforces the living thread of governance. Across continents, the ledger resonates. In Washington, officials note how Spain aligns tradition with modern oversight, measuring resilience through fiscal discipline. London recognizes parallels in its own monarchy, restraint is a mark of legitimacy. In Ottawa and Canberra, the ledger is a template, a reflection of how ceremonial institutions can survive in contemporary democracies. Germany watches quietly, noting the balance between constitutional obligation and institutional autonomy. Continuity is not abstract here, it is tested, observed, and confirmed in real time. Yet the ledger is not a document of certainty. Some entries remain deliberately opaque, hinting at future obligations, undisclosed programs, and investments that prepare the successor for responsibilities the public cannot yet perceive. Minute by minute, the ledger shapes capability, embeds discipline, and reinforces authority. The hidden royal ledger records not indulgence, but endurance, a testament to the fusion of law, duty, and global perception. At the edge of history, the ledger imposes order, but it also reveals tension. Political scrutiny, public expectation, global observation, each intersects with institutional authority, producing pressures that are both invisible and consequential. Princess Leonor's role is singular. She embodies the institution while navigating its constraints, her wealth inseparable from responsibility, her actions inseparable from legacy. Minute by minute, her stewardship reinforces the survival of the institution, even as uncertainty waits quietly on the horizon. The hidden royal ledger. And in this final moment, the ledger closes not with resolution, but with implication. Figures line up precisely, obligations are recorded meticulously, yet the next chapter remains unwritten. Princess Leonor stands poised at the intersection of law, tradition, and duty, fully accountable to the state that funds her, fully observed by a world that interprets every detail. The ledger signals endurance, legitimacy, and continuity, yet the story stretches forward into silence, deliberate, unresolved, and profoundly consequential. The hidden royal ledger. What it will reveal next is not known, only anticipated. The institution endures, the successor prepares, and the world watches, aware that what comes next will define both authority and history.